Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, school officially ends tomorrow, so everybody has the summer off. It's time. Duly noticed the meeting. We have all of our trustees here tonight, so we have a quorum, and the meeting is duly called and being held. First, we're going to start with police officer oath of office. So, if we could have Trustee Hyatt do the honors.
Commissioner, just
and Kenny, could you give us a little background?
Thank you, Mayor. This time I'd like to announce a new officer for the Garden City Police Department, Tom Shea. He was born and raised in Suffolk County, where he lives with his parents, William and Marie, and brothers Bill and Rob. His brother Rob is also a police officer with Nassau County Police Department. Tom graduated from Farmingdale State University 2012 in business management. He was hired by New York City Police Department in 2014, where he worked patrol, highway safety, and in tactical divisions, and remained until he joined the Garden City Police Department. He and his wife, Katie, residing in Suffolk County. So I'm proud to present Tom Shea.
Yeah, I'm sworn in and up tomorrow.
We'll do it first, then come on. Yeah, okay. Raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Thomas Shea,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York
and the Constitution of the State of New York
and the laws and ordinances of the Village of Garden City,
and the laws and ordinances of the Village of Garden City,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
with the Garden City Police Department
with the Garden City Police Department.
to the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
I requested me as police commissioner of the Village of Garden City, and declare you duly appointed. Congratulations.
Thank you for letting us have one.
Take your time.
Just one more.
Thanks a lot.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you. So if you're speeding or blowing through stop signs, watch out. And speaking of speeding, I would like it noted that the state legislature has ended its session, and neither of our representatives acted on our request to get some speed cameras in the village. So thank you very much, and please direct your comments accordingly. Okay, let's see, what's next is we got some approval for some volunteer firefighters. Chief, you want to give us a little...
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our two new members are Liam Hollis and Sean Sullivan. You guys here? Oh, there they are. Liam has been part of our junior program for 4 years, which he's enjoyed very much. He looks forward to expand his training, being a full firefighter, wants to take part in the community service. He joined the department's college program and will be attending Marist College. While at home, he works as a lifeguard and looks to attain his certification for beach and waterfront locations. Sean, he is a member of the department's junior program also for 4 years. He feels he was blessed with his life and wants to give back to the community and friends. He's also joined the department's college program while attending University of Delaware. In his free time, he works as a lifeguard and swim instructor at a local summer camp. He enjoys very much teaching water swimming and swim lessons to young campers, as well as overseeing their overall safety in the pool. Thank you, gentlemen.
Ask for a resolution approving these fine young gentlemen as volunteer firefighters. Trustee Delaney makes that resolution, seconded by Trustee Heyer. All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You're free to come. You can certainly stay, but you're free to go. Thank you. Okay, I guess we'll move to regular part of our meeting. We have our staff and trustees talk about some of the agenda items. I think Mr. Swazi, you probably have one or two you might want to mention. The SCADA, for example.
So there's a, sorry. Mayor and trustees, there's a number of items on here that are related specifically to the Department of Public Works. If you'll bear with me, I'll go through them one at a time. The first is item 13, with the reconstruction of the Nassau County Stewart Avenue east of Clinton. The village took the opportunity to upgrade the wiring and a couple of light poles since the building exposed the roadbed. So we jumped on that and we did some needed upgrades there. So that's what that first transfer is about. The second item is a consent order from the Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State. The water tank project on Old Country Road, one of the preparatory aspects of it was to do a soil sample, looking for lead from the old lead paint that the current tank is painted with. The DEC has approved a consent order, which will not change. However, the work plan and what we actually do will be modified, so we're waiting for that work plan to be okay. But we want the board to approve this tonight, pending final approval by council, both Peter B. and our environmental counsel, Dave Uelson, so that if the consent order comes through like tomorrow, we don't have to wait until July 10th to start proceeding. So that's what this is about. The leak detection survey. This is, we do a report on our water every year, I forget the actual acronym for it, but one of the things is we try to conserve water. The state makes us do a conservancy plan. What we do is, this year we noticed that our pumpage in our buildings are disproportionately spread further apart than they have been in the past. So we're doing a leak detection, which will help us look for any leaks in the system that may be a waste of money and environmentally not good. So that's what that's about. Professional services, this is our drug and alcohol testing, the tri-state. 17, the SCADA and communication upgrade. Our water system works with a very sophisticated thing called the SCADA system. I forget what the acronyms for it. It has to do with communication. SCADA allows the pumps, the well sites to talk to each other, so if the tank's low, the SCADA system tells the well to turn on, pumps water into it. If the pressure is low, if there's a problem, it alerts us. We can monitor it from our smartphones. We're going to the SCADA system after the water tank, but since the water tank has been slightly delayed, and Verizon has decided to decommission their copper central station in Hempstead, we're forced to do the SCADA system now by using Cablevision as our connectivity. So we have a hardware issue, we have unanticipated expense with Altice, so we're doing everything at once. Also with the SCADA system, the original projection that was given to the board was a price that was 2 years old, almost 3 years old. So it was much more expensive. So the good news is the additional funding we're asking for here to raise the project from its original 400 to 696 is coming from another capital project we do not have to do. We had a $400,000 project at Wells 1314 to close some filters in the building. That was not part of the UNESCO settlement. We thought it was. We're abandoning that project, transferring these funds here. So net, we're going to spend $53,000 less with this one project that we're able to combine, and it's needed. Item number 18, if people came into the front entrance tonight on the east side of the building, you'll notice that there were orange cones there. We have some beautiful granite steps there. The stones have shifted and there's a tripping hazard there. We've been there for a number of years. Recently one of the stones has started wobbling, so this is to reconstruct that professionally with a stone contractor. And the number 19 is vehicle control. This is a maintenance renewal of the people who maintain the controls within the Wells systems that communicate with each other. Item number 20 is a grinder pump. We have 2 sewer pumping stations. Inside each of them are 3 pumps that 2 rest while 1 is working and they rotate. We've updated 5 of the 6 pumps in the 2 stations over the last few years, and we upgraded 1 of the 2 grinder pumps. So this is, and when we're done with this upgrade, we will have upgraded 7 of the 8 pumps. The 8th pump is relatively young, so we're in a very good position that way as well. They're checked regularly, but the fact is that they you know, like I said, they rotate. They're a natural. It's a 3 backup system. And the grinder pump plays an important role because as the product comes into the wells of the pumping site, it grinds things up so it's less stress on the pump. So it actually helps stretch the life of those as well.
I'm not sure anybody wants a lot of detail on what they actually do.
Just a maintenance on this.
If I could, Kevin, if you could just give us a skinny on 3C.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Board. Yes, 3C is actually under finance. It's a request for a contingent transfer to fund some important work that we would like to do at the St. Paul's Recreation Complex. We have been looking at some of the land on the west side of the property primarily. We have identified an area that we would like to kind of recapture so that we can actually use it for recreational purposes and have additional field space so that we can actually shift our fields, give them a break from the heavy use that they have. That will also help us actually take some fields out of play from time to time for a season so that we can renovate them. The area that we're going to be recapturing is about just under 2 acres of property. In order to do that, we'll have to remove some trees and some shrubs. We've cataloged the trees to be removed. They are basically some of the native material that was left there when the fields were built originally, and a lot of weed seedling trees that have grown over the years. So we're talking about wild cherry and things like that, a few oaks and Norway maple, and again, things that are kind of volunteers in the landscape world. So we have a plan to take those trees out. There are a lot of shrubs that were from time to time planted, because I know that they're not native, and they were in fact planted on village property. So those, any shrubs within a 35 feet off of the perimeter, the property line will be removed. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else anyone wants to comment on from staff? A little more information about a particular item, or any questions from?
Mayor, can I just mention 2 small items on here as well? We have 2 executive compensation on the agenda tonight, items 5 and 6. One is for our police commissioner, Commissioner Jackson, who does a fantastic job protecting this village and the people below him, keep them trained and equipped to do the job they have to do here. So thank you, Commissioner, for your ongoing efforts on behalf of the village. The other one is for our Superintendent of Public Works, Joe Francisco. He's not here tonight, so I really didn't prepare anything, so next meeting I'll embarrass him a bit. But I just want to tell you that he's been an outstanding executive. He inherited a village with many capital needs, both maintenance-wide and brand new infrastructure, water tanks being one small project. He's taken a fresh look at everything. He's upgraded systems. He's taken control of buildings and facilities, the processes, the planning, overall management itself, coordination with other departments, scheduling of resources. He's also backs me up as deputy village administrator, so I can't tell you how pleased I am that the board supported this well-deserved increase in recognition. Congratulations, Joe. Anything to say? Thank you already.
One thing I just want to make note of, we are hoping to have, and it'll be in the paper on Friday, we have a tentative date, we're hoping to stick to it, for July 17th. We are going to have a presentation. We're trying to figure out where. It might be Food Hall, it might be at the Senior Center or the casino, to start making public the concept that we are looking at for St. Paul's. The architects, engineering firms we hired, they're pretty close to getting done with the final product that we can show to everybody. So we're hoping to do that July 17th. We'll probably do one the next week as well, which I think is the 26th or 4th. And then maybe, we'll do more, but, and then maybe one on that following Saturday or 2. So we'll get everybody plenty of notice, but I just want to give people a heads up on that at this point. So, okay, let's see. So we will now move to citizens' comments on agenda items. Before we start, obviously there's 555 as an agenda item. The public.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I have a question about 2A. Can somebody explain what that is? Why? Ralph, Irene?
This is for the Covanta contract?
Yes, the Covanta contract that we have for the dumping of the garbage. So the annual contract is about $1 million. The annual contract is estimated to be around $1 million, but it is also based on tonnage. And so for the fiscal year ended 17-18, it was a lot more garbage than was estimated, so we needed an additional $13,000 transferred to that account. Correct.
17th and 26th. Looking at it, sorry. Okay. Again, we'll get better notice after that's what we're looking at now. So we'll go to the, before we get to citizens' comments, there's 555 matters related to that project on this agenda. The public hearing for this has ended, so these are not part of the record for the hearing. What we're doing tonight, I think I'm actually going to ask Council Mr. Levin just a little better explanation of what we're working on tonight.
Want to do that now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 2 items on tonight's agenda that relate to 555 Stewart. As you know, and you just mentioned, we have had, the board's been conducting public hearings for several months with respect to this project. They've been very extensive. We've heard comments from a lot of people. The applicants made several presentations, and there have been some revisions to the proposed project as they went along. So we're now at the point of deciding whether to go forward with this or not. And there are 2 items on tonight's agenda that are related to that. The first one is the adoption of a law that would amend the permitted uses in the RT district, which is the district the property is in, so that the type of use, the multifamily use that's being proposed, would be permitted. We had prepared and circulated to the board, I think they're on the website as well, and outside. There are 2 versions of this law that were circulated. The first one was the one under discussion most of the way through the hearings, and the second one, the first one has a height limit for the building of 45 feet, And the second one had an amendment that the applicant had requested, which would give the Board of Trustees authority to grant a limited extension of that height of 45 feet for a portion of the building to permit the amenity, the fitness center, to be located in the center part of the building above the portico, where it would exceed the height of 45 feet for approximately 10% of the horizontal distance of that elevation of the building. So those two, the hearings have been concluded. Those two versions are before you for a decision as to what you want to do. It's my understanding from the discussions we've had that the board's preference has been for the first version, which is labeled Proposed Local Law Bill 1-20182. The other one is 2018A. And we prepared a resolution for the board to adopt that law if the board is prepared to do so. That's the first item. The second item is we have not had sufficient time to actually prepare a draft decision for the board for its consideration tonight on the use permit that is part of this project. There are three steps. There's the local law, then there's the use permit, and then there's the site plan approval. We're not at the site plan approval stage, and the applicant has not submitted the final drawings for that, the engineering, the drainage, and so on. So H2M has not had anything to review. But we do have the special use permit, which is the second step, and we have prepared a resolution for the board to authorize us to draft a resolution that would contain various conditions, and then the board would consider this at their July 10th meeting. And you, at that point, would vote up or down or something else, because you can change it, you can do something different. So those are the two items that are on the agenda for tonight.
Okay. Okay, before we start, just rules of the road, which is we always have. We have 4 minutes for each speaker, no sharing of time. If you have 2 minutes, you're not allowed to give someone else your unused minutes. No commenters can speak more than once. We ask that everyone make comments in a civil manner. We know there's passions on this topic and other topics. Please don't insult anyone, and keep your comments to the point, and there we go. So, anyone like to speak on agenda items? At the end of the meeting, we have commentary of time for general comments. Anyone with an agenda? Yes, ma'am?
But are we allowed to speak
Sorry.
about 555 in our agenda items?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
If I could just get some clarification. I thought that 555 public hearing was over.
Yes, it is, but since it's an agenda item,
Okay.
authorizing council.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm Betsy Andromedas, I live at 116 New Market Road.
Oh, before you start, you got in okay, right?
I what?
You got into the meeting okay, right?
Yeah, why?
Oh, because I heard somebody saying that we were going to keep people out tonight, close the doors, so I just want to make sure
No,
you got in.
last week, don't be fresh, Brian, because that's really unbecoming of your position.
Okay.
It really is. Don't be fresh. The doors were locked last week and people couldn't get in. So I don't appreciate your snarky
We've never locked
comments.
the doors, so please.
Okay, they were locked last week and people couldn't get in, and finally somebody heard the knocking and went downstairs. So please don't degrade your position.
And
Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees and Brian,
4 minutes. It's Mayor, please.
I stand before you tonight, a lifelong resident of this beautiful community, asking you all to fulfill your fiduciary responsibility to the residents of Garden City and decline the request for high-density housing in a location currently zoned for single-family homes. To do so otherwise is a violation of the oath you all took when you took office. We understand you're not the IDA. We understand you're not the school board. But however, if approval for the project is given, the roots for the pilot application are planted here tonight, and the dirt will be on your hands. Most people now are aware, if you approve this application, we, the residents, will have to shoulder the school tax bill. It will not only be the added expense of school taxes, but there will be a lot more kids in the school, and that will add to other expenses. This has never been about race. It has never been about who is moving in here. Anybody can move into this community, buy a home, and pay your taxes. Anybody. I don't care who moves in from wherever. As long as you pay your taxes, you're good with me. People tried to make this about other things to draw away attention from the matter at hand, which is us having to pay the school taxes for this developer. And it's wrong. I beg you to do the right thing and deny this application. Tokita was created, the IDA was created to help communities in peril and help bring people in. We're not a community in peril. Being a realtor in town is like the greatest job because everybody wants to live here. Anybody can live here, they just have to pay their taxes. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Leo Stimler, Huntington Road. I hope that you pass tonight's proposed amendment on 555 Stewart Avenue. If you don't, I fear that the village could face the wrath of Judge Spat. And the first person knocking on his door will be the gentleman who was here 2 weeks ago. I don't remember his name, but I think he said he was from the Communities for Change. I think if we rightfully so, we should be concerned about the pilot, but I don't think tonight asking the trustees to deny this this amendment is the correct path. I think all of us residents need to go to the IDA hearing. And I would remind my fellow residents that, to the best of my ability, Newsday said that when the Green Acres Mall asked for a pilot from the IDA, nobody came to the meeting, and the proposal to expand the Green Acres Mall was approved. They got their pilot, and their taxes skyrocketed. The residents complained, and the IDA reversed their position. However, to the best of my recollection, the newspaper said that Green Acres Mall went to court, and the pilot was in place. So I think what we need to do is not ask our trustees to amend the village code. Let's not bring the wrath of Judge Spat on us. What we need to do is to go to the IDA hearing when it comes up and plead our case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They settled that.
Excuse me, there's no commentary. Let people speak so everyone else can hear each other. And politely approach the podium if you want to make comments. So I think Mr. Schnelder was next, and then you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everybody. I'd like to make a few comments about that housing. There is a frenzy of new housing going on Long Island. When all the water is gone, then what? Okay? If you don't know what to do with the property, if you recall part of a poem I wrote, which I submitted to the village a while ago, growth is local as the focal. Because should something happen, all these cyber wars and whatever's going on, if the grid goes down, you already got food in 3 days. Okay? So, you better be real about what the new reality is. Also, vehicular traffic. A lot of times when I drive when there's like no traffic, but sometimes I drive when I don't pay attention and I get caught in traffic. I mean, you can be on like Old Country Road, and I went from like Russell Road to the mall. It took me a half hour. I mean, you could spit, that distance, okay? And just going that short distance took me a half hour because the traffic was just complete rhythm. So you got to consider the traffic, and you got to consider that we're going to run out of water. I mean, we got aquifers, okay? 2 of them are contaminated. We're only drawing from 1, okay? And again, it's not just Garden City; it's rampant throughout the whole island. People are board members. Community administrators, you're being bought by the developers, you're getting kickbacks. You guys are doing that, but it just doesn't make any sense. There's no need for it. And as far as demographics, it's like, don't get me started, okay? I mean, because population, or some groups say population, is out of control. So, you know, they're gonna have to expand. Go to Hempstead. I mean, I was founded in 1644. It used to be all white. Now you can't find a white person there.
That's like totally out of line.
Totally out of line.
Yes, it is.
Totally out of line.
If you're gonna
I don't think it's totally out of line.
Has nothing to do with this board. Please sit down.
Demographics is an
Thank
issue.
you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Please sit down.
disgusting. Yeah. I deal with these people every day.
Please stop.
Talk about disgusting.
Next. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
I think you got my, Rochelle Dowling, I think you got my letter. Did you get my letter that I sent you?
Yes, ma'am.
What's, you want the change from RT district has not been done, apparently. Is that true?
I'm sorry?
Change for uses permitted to the RT district that has not been approved.
Yes, the
Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, tonight and
Why would you,
10th.
you've done an awful lot of zoning changes. I didn't go to the zoning board meetings, but reading in the paper, too many zoning changes this year. Too many. And too fast. Oh, yes, they have them. If you want, I'll send you clippings.
Thank you.
That's not the end. I called the IDA, you said that as a village trustee you couldn't go. I asked the IDA today. I called and asked them, and they said, there's no restriction on village people, administrators or anyone coming. It's up to them whether they want to come. And I do hope that we don't even have to go that far. This project is just too big. And I don't want to pay the school taxes of this developer. I don't want to have to go to the IDA because he should be paying the school taxes. If he wants to build here, I built 3 houses and I worked hard to get 3 houses and I paid my school taxes all the time. And I think everyone else should, including rich builders.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Bob Rose, Grove Street. The results of this zoning change may benefit the landlord and provide educational bargain for those who occupy this unit. But for the rest of us, we'll be forced to pay and live with the impact of overpopulation, especially in our schools, the saturation of the area, traffic congestion, which is horrendous already during certain hours of the day and months of the year, along with the stretching of local services and resources. It would seem that it's all up to you, the elected members of the board, as to what direction this village will take going forward. As to whether we will be true to Stewart's plan to build and maintain a suburban community, which is the main reason most of us moved here in the first place, or will it become nothing more than an overcrowded extension of Queens? It should be noted that any decision at this time will have far-reaching consequences related to any construction anywhere in the village. Special attention should be given to an upcoming project in the immediate area between Ring Road and Clinton Avenue, which could make a bad situation even worse by possibly bringing in another 170 cars when preparing your final determination on 555 Stewart.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Sweeney. I reside on Bluebell Court. And I'm here to ask the mayor and the board of trustees to please not change the zoning. I've heard and I've been following in the newspaper, commentary on social media, the website, and I tried to stay well informed. And as much as I read, I see a number of very clear reasons why this builder wants to do what he wants to do. And I think everyone can understand that he has a shot to have a great big place that he can make, he thinks, a lot of money on. The fact that it would impact the school taxes, you know, it's been said a million times. The fact that the traffic over there is horrendous doesn't even have to be said, because I'm quite confident that particularly the trustees from the east have sat in that traffic. And it is difficult to manage Stewart Avenue at any time of the day now. Not just when school gets out, not just at rush hour, but almost any time of the day. And then at least the road has been repaired, so it's not totally a bomb thing when you're riding down the street. But if you can't move too fast, it didn't really matter that there were so many potholes. So I keep reading, and I don't see any compelling reason. And I mean it in the most strict terminology, compelling. There's no compelling rationale for you people and this village to change a zoning law. Zoning laws are not supposed to be changed willy-nilly. Zoning laws are set forth with a very particular rationale behind them. This has been zoned for townhouses. There is ample opportunity for this developer to help the Village of Garden City by putting affordable units in the townhouses, which would help us to accomplish a goal that Judge Spratt thinks we need to accomplish. But this developer just wants to do it big, and there's no compelling reason for us to let him just go big. Every time a zoning law gets changed, it weakens every other zoning law. And that is true. And you know that, and you need, please, I ask you need to really consider that. Because you don't operate just for today. You are operating for the future of us all. And it means everything suddenly starts to wiggle. Make a good decision. Make a thoughtful decision. Please decide not to let it be bigger. Thank you.
Anyone else, or any other matter on the agenda? Anyone wants to? Yes, sir.
Steve Gallardi, Meadow Street. I would just like to say I would prefer that you don't support version A of this bill and allow the height to exceed the 4 stories and 45 feet, which was pretty much discussed for about 95% of the public hearings and throughout the entire process until the very end at the last meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone bring other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Richard Williams. I'm from Stewart Avenue, Garden City. My question, my comment is, why is this so compelling? I'm going to echo what the lady said a few minutes ago. I don't understand the compelling reason we're doing this. What is the benefit to the village and the detriment to us? I see a great detriment to this village, a significant detriment to what we're proposing to do, changing zoning for this person. Why are we doing this for one person to the I believe, the detriment of the entire village? I think it's contrary to our best interest in every way. I think it's contrary to the long-term interest of this village. I think we've seen evidence of this. One individual gets a benefit and everybody else gets a detriment. I think it's wrong. I think we ought to consider that. I think we ought to consider it seriously. I think it affects everyone in this town. And I think it affects everyone in this town in a very, very poor, bad way. Thank you.
Thank you. There was someone else. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Kevin Walsh, 229 7th Street, Garden City, New York. I'll use my comment period not to discuss the specifics of the application. You've heard that. You have studied that. I could not, and no one can convince the many of the people here that this plan is a good plan, that it will actually improve and increase school revenue, tax revenue. That's a matter of the application, it's a matter of record. I think history, if it is granted, will show that. I do want to make a comment, though, and I wasn't going to make it, but I am. I think the height of this thing, which is the version that you're looking at, you'll make your decision. We've weighed in on that on our side, but it is important that the record be known, and that the people in this room, as well as the rest of the village, knows that that height proposal with the fitness center at the top was the only height proposal studied throughout the entire application here. You know that because we submitted the work for that, but I'm not sure the public knows that. In addition to that, the newspaper, which is, I guess I'm taking on the school district, I'm taking on the newspaper, they tell you you shouldn't do this stuff, but our newspaper is very important, this is every newspaper. The headline in Friday's newspaper was relative to the applicant changing the height at the last minute of this. That is clearly not what happened here. Anybody who knows what happened in the proceeding knows it wasn't happening, and it was driven by the newspaper to affect an attitude about the project. They have a right as an editorial board to take a position on things for the village, and we should all applaud. But to put it on the front of the page so that the entire village believes that this applicant has changed the plan on this village in an effort to game the system at the last minute, it's just wrong. You'll make a decision one way or the other on that height, that's your decision, and we will live with what it is, assuming you do grant this application. But it should be said in the record, and everyone should support the idea that the newspaper should be accurate, and they should print a retraction or a correction to be accurate as what that plan showed. And that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Mr. Walsh, I have a question. Since you brought up the height. I remember, I wasn't on the zoning change committee the last couple of years, but I could have sworn, my memory could be wrong, is that when this project was first presented, the height in that section was going to be about a 4-foot bump up for a crown. And now it's 11 foot for a gym. So if I am correct, could you please tell me where along the project that you decided, or the developer decided, to make this 11 foot, knowing that they were going against the height restrictions that are allowed?
Yeah, well, first of all, there weren't height restrictions at the point. At that point, there weren't height restrictions. They were created well after that. So your point is well taken. Initially, in 2016, the first draft of this building showed a block building. It was the same height in the whole U shape. Right. In that zoning review committee, it was discussed that that's not an attractive building. That's not fair to the folks along Raymond Court. That's not the way we should design a building. So we changed the design, took some units out initially, and actually have a stepped up approach where it's 2 stories in the wings. In order to accommodate the 2 stories in the wings and the 3rd story for the rest of the 2 wings, we needed to take some room on the back end and went to the 4 stories and put in the gym on top. So that was how that evolved, and it was very, very early on. Nobody should be able to say that the application as presented to the review committee that they reviewed and passed, and this board has only studied, and the experts of this board have studied, had anything other than that height there. In addition, only one comment I've heard in the entire process here has raised the issue of that being an issue. So you will ultimately make a decision on the whole thing, but the question would be, what is to be gained by removing that and moving that, because the zoning statute that was drafted, if it's approved, would allow us to put it somewhere else in the building. What would be benefited by putting that structure somewhere else in that building?
So if I understand it correctly, I am correct, it was a small bump, and then you made the decision as a developer to change that to an 11-foot gym, and you knew by doing that it exceeded the height restrictions of the village, correct?
The last part is the height restrictions of the village depends on the zone. Everything about that exceeded the height restrictions of that district. Even before that, the height restriction, because it was a residential.
But you knew doing this would exceed the height restrictions?
No, because they hadn't been created. The height restriction for this zone, when you're considering, hadn't even been created yet. It was, as many other aspects of that, had never been created. It was created in contemplation of you considering this application. And in doing so, that same thing, the structure that was being looked at, left off that height as an issue. Now, if that was intentional, that's obviously your decision. I just want to make sure that nobody believes that last meeting or the last go-around, we submitted something different trying to gain that argument. It was clearly not the case.
Yes, you have a spoken?
I have a question. Could you please tell me how many emails, how many phone calls, and how many letters have you received in objecting to the change in code?
I think it's about 59, 79? 79.
79 what? 79 emails?
Emails.
How many letters?
Including emails and
Okay,
correspondence.
I have a concern because I called and several of my neighbors called. And when I called, no one took down my name or my address. So therefore, a record is not being kept. And therefore, your number of 59s, no one is really saying how many emails, how many letters, and how many phone calls have been received. And that is very upsetting to me because I know several people. And I also know that there are people went door to door having people sign a petition. So I would really like to know the communication that has happened from the village being concerned about the code being changed and how many people have objected. Is there a way of getting that? Because it was very
We
upsetting.
just gave you the number.
But that number cannot possibly be true.
Why?
Because I made a phone call and no one took a recording, no one took down my phone number, my address and my name. So therefore I know there is not a true record of how many people have objected.
I was told by an individual named Karen that actual phone calls were not being recorded by the
Correct.
office.
That is correct.
So how do you know?
We asked for written comments.
Written comments so they can be
You either come to a hearing and make a comment, or submit a written comment.
So what if you had 10,000 phone calls?
But we didn't.
What if you had 1,000?
Thank you.
You wouldn't know.
Yes, and did you receive the petition that was
No.
sent to you?
Not receive the petition.
Oh, isn't that, maybe it got lost in the mail accidentally on purpose?
That's not really fair.
Well, it's unacceptable to me.
Phone
that I
calls
made
should
a
be
phone
recorded.
call
They should be
And my
recorded.
name and address was not copied down because they did not ask me. And then I know several of my neighbors did the same thing. Several of my neighbors did the same thing. And I really want to know why when my father happened to have been a trustee of the town. And I know that everyone, they stuck by the law and a code was not changed, okay? And as homeowners, if we wanted to have a code change to even put a fence up, we have a whole procedure we have to go through. So with homeowners, we're not getting the same opportunity that this builder is getting. And that is very upsetting.
This process has been going on for more than a year. What are you talking about? This process has been going on for
That
well
still
over.
didn't answer my question.
I did answer your question.
Can I ask who was supposed to submit the petition?
Excuse me?
Do you know who was submitting the petition?
I could find that out. Because I know it was in the estate section
We
of the estate
had
section.
public hearings, we had rules about public hearings, well publicized, for everyone to come and make a comment or submit a comment in writing. Very simple rules.
Okay, and I think that you realize that many people in this village work long hours, and that the easiest way for them to do is to send an email or to make a phone call. We have a right to let you know how upset and how concerned we are that you are changing the code. And I would really like to know, can you give us an answer of why are you changing the code? For what reason? Why are you changing the code?
Why are we considering this application?
Why are you willing, or why have you been changing codes lately and not sticking to the codes? Codes were there for a reason. Why are we changing them?
I don't even understand your question.
Well, isn't this whole objective?
It's a simple question. Why are you changing the code for our team? Very simple question.
Because there's an application before us that we are required to consider.
But you're willing to change it. You're considering, I want to know for what reason, why would you be changing the code?
What does it get the residents?
Are there other comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I represent sort of a younger contingent of the town that's moved in, and I don't know if you've noticed, but the Mott section's completely turned over the last 5 years. We have lots of kids, probably 30 or 40 on my block, and they'll all be going to Stewart School. About 6 to 8 months ago, Nassau County approached the town and wanted to completely redo the intersection of Clinton and Stewart. Does everyone remember that? Okay, and it got denied, correct? So now we're going to add an additional 500 cars exiting and entering Stewart Avenue in that exact same section without the improvement. Okay. Is that a good thing? No. Secondly, are we not recording phone calls from constituents? Why not? We have a lot of old folks in the crowd, a lot of old folks in town, no offense. They don't answer now, they don't write, they pick up the phone, they call. Your office is responsible for recording all those calls and realizing what proportion.
No, we're not. But
well,
you can say a fact, but it's not a fact. So
you
we're
know
not.
what your constituents want and what they should. You were voted in by them, and you'll be voted out by them.
Okay.
Okay. And lastly, I wanted to address the traffic study. Who exactly paid for the traffic study?
The developer.
The developer paid for the traffic study. How interesting. So
Wait. Now, before you throw out another incorrect fact, part of our zoning application process requires developers to pay costs that the village otherwise would incur. This is done so the village doesn't have to pay the costs, and so the village taxpayers don't have to pay those costs.
Well, I will individually pay for a new traffic study. If you will agree to that, so that the residents can know exactly what the impact is going to be on the school and on the area. Would you guys agree to having a traffic study? No, of course not.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else who has not spoken? We're only taking comments from single. If you've already spoken, you don't have to speak again.
Is that a rule? Is that a rule?
Yes, I said it in the beginning.
No, that's not a rule.
He did say
Yeah, but that's terrible.
Thank you.
It's a bad rule.
Thank you.
We have additional comments.
You're not allowed to do that.
We have additional comments.
Yes, sir. No, Richard.
My name is Peter Florio from 169 Nassau Boulevard. I just want to let the board know, I echo what my fellow residents say. I don't see any gain for Garden City or the village for this project. I really see what bringing 343 more cars into the neighborhood, into that particular area, which happens to have a school like 2 blocks away from it, the elementary school. So I really don't understand why you would want something that big close to a school, bringing more traffic to a dangerous traffic area as it is. And I'm just totally opposed, and I wish the board would know that all my neighbors and friends in town feel the same as I do. And I hope you take that into consideration. I get the feeling you're not, though. So I hope you do. Okay? Thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken or wants to talk about something else on the agenda? Okay. So, Mr. Levin, do we act on this first, or do we, Mr. B, or do we do the minutes? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of June 7, 2018? Mr. McPhinos makes that motion. All those in favor? Unanimously approved. Minutes of June 7, 2018 are approved. Now we have moved to the agenda items. Again, is there anything a trustee needs further clarification on agenda items? No? Okay, thank you very much. What would be our process to adopt?
Well, if a member of the board wishes to move the adoption of one or the other version of the local law, this is an appropriate time. If the board does not want to do that at this time, that's a decision the board can make as well.
Okay, and this would be to adopt
This is
the
with
local
respect
law.
to the one or the other version of the local law. The one we assumed is the 2018, not 2018A.
And the issue.
A is the additional height, correct.
That's the law. And then we would be leaving open until July 10th. Site.
Well, the other, yes, we had suggested a resolution that directed the preparation of a draft decision for July 10th. And that's the second item we have, that is listed as was A2.
Mr. B is not purposely talking softly. He has laryngitis.
I have a question about that. What's the difference between that and what we would do on July 10th?
That's my backup. I can try to speak loud. That would help. The difference between the two items is the first one amends the code so that the proposed development is permitted under the RT district with board approval. And then the second item is the one that would give board approval, assuming the board doesn't vote that way. It would give the board approval in implementing that law. So it's a two-step process. If you don't pass the first step, there is no second step. Right? Does that answer the question?
Does any member of the board wish to move local law number 1-2018?
I'll make that motion. Just renew those seconds. That's the.
That is without the A. That is with the 45-foot limit. That item has been moved and seconded.
We need to vote on that item. All those in favor? Vote is 7-1 in favor of that item.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Motion therefore passes and the local law is adopted.
Can I get a motion to approve the...
Is there also a motion to direct council to prepare a draft decision embodying a number of conditions? And I think at this point, Mr. Levin would briefly review those conditions.
We made a list of the conditions that have come up in the course of the discussions and have been offered by the applicant and also are required for the compliance with the federal court judgment and the compliance with the village's affordable housing law. So if you want me to read them all off, there were 15 of them. And this is not an exclusive list. Nor is it a list that's required to be in the decision. Ultimately, the board will decide whether any of these go in the decision or not, and if any other conditions go in the decision or not. So the decisions, the conditions that we picked out of the various comments and discussions were, number one, all the development of the property would be as it's known as a QRD development, which is the affordable housing development under the village code amendments that were adopted some time back. Secondly, the development would be as specified on the plans that have been presented to and reviewed by the board, unless the board otherwise approves a change in them at some later date. The specific plan documents that have been presented would be enumerated and identified in the draft decision. The approval of the use permit plan would be subject to subsequent review and approval of site plans. As I mentioned earlier, we do not yet have the engineering, drainage, and other detailed plans that go into a site plan. So any action by the board would be conditional on the subsequent approval of a site plan. All approved plans would also be subject to review by the Architectural Design Review Board to the extent required by the village code and the procedures the village customarily follows. And there is authorization granted to the Design Review Board to allow an increase in height for a portion of the building that is below the maximum height already and would not go above the maximum height permitted even with the change for the purposes of relocating the amenity, but any such increase in height would have to be on the northernmost wing of the building, which is the one parallel to Stewart Avenue, furthest from Stewart Avenue, as shown on the plans. The building department would be authorized to allow minor and insubstantial variations to accommodate field conditions. Anytime you build anything, you always find once you start that there's something on the property you didn't anticipate. You have to move something, a foot here, a foot there. The maximum number of units would be 150. 15 of those units would be designated as affordable housing under the village's affordable housing legislation. The mix of units is the mix described during the hearings: 20 one-bedroom units, 115 two-bedroom units, and 3 three-bedroom units. That doesn't add up right. I think I have a mistake. So I think it's probably, Kevin, is it 5 three-bedroom units? I'll get the correct number from the list. And the units may not be combined without the express approval of the board, and no combination of units, even if permitted, can result in a diminution in the number of affordable units. They would have to be maintained 15 affordable units. No permits will be issued, and the use permit approval is not considered final until we have several agreements made in a binding fashion with the applicant and the owner. One is a services agreement, which was offered by the applicant and discussed at many of the hearings, where the applicant would guarantee that the village will receive the full amount of village property taxes that would be levied against the property, even if there's a pilot or an IDA agreement. We're going to get whatever the taxes would be without the pilot or the IDA. Covenants and restrictions as required by the affordable housing law to make sure that for the periods of time that are required by that law, the affordable housing will remain affordable. And the form of those would have to be approved by the village attorney and me. And those will have to be in a form that binds future owners of the property and run with the land, and they're going to be recorded at the county clerk's office at the applicant's expense, so that they're on notice to anybody who may acquire any interest in the property in the future. In addition, the developer will be required to reimburse the village or deposit with the village funds that will compensate the village for any expenses it incurs, for legal services, for preparation and review of any of the documents that are required by the approval. The applicant is going to be required to provide specific insurance to protect the village, its officers, agents, and employees, and provide endorsements to those policies so that we know that should any claims come along for liability of any type, the village is going to be covered by the developer and the developer's insurance. The developer has to comply with all the representations that it has made during the application and public hearing process. The development and use of the property has to comply with all the village affordable housing requirements, including compliance with the village code QRD developments. The affordable housing units, the 15 units, shall consist of a specific mix of 2 one-bedroom units, 12 two-bedroom units, and 1 three-bedroom unit. Now, of the one-bedroom units, 1 shall be for a family classified under the federal regulations as very low income, and 1 for a family of extremely low income. The two-bedroom units, or 12, would be allocated equally in each of the 3 income categories in the federal regulation. They're known as very low income, very low income, and extremely low income. The 1 three-bedroom unit shall be a family of low income. And the levels for those incomes are set by the federal regulations and based on the Nassau-Suffolk median income. The mix and the categories of the affordable units shall not be changed without the prior approval of the Board of Trustees, and in no event will there be fewer than 15 affordable units. The availability of those units will have to be advertised over a wide area in an open and public manner, overseen by the village and the affordable housing law to make sure that this is an open and transparent process. The selection of tenants for the affordable housing units will be made in a manner that the developer or applicant is going to determine, but it has to be approved by the village. And that process, again, has to be open, transparent, and random. So we're probably looking at a lottery of eligible people. And that's subject to village board oversight. The applicant and the owner will also be required to obtain all the building permits within a specified period of time. We haven't resolved what that period would be. After completion of all the prerequisites for permit issuance. So that means not only the use approval, but also the site plan approval and the ADRB approval. And then there are probably going to be some other approvals from some county agencies. So once those are all done, there will be a fixed period of time within which the applicant must pull down the building permits. And failure to comply with that condition will render the approval null and void unless the trustees grant an extension of that time period. And in granting any extension, the Board of Trustees may impose reasonable fees and or conditions. Similarly, once the permits are pulled and the project begins construction, they're going to be required to complete the job and obtain the COs within another fixed period of time that will be set in the final resolution. Again, with the Board of Trustees having authority to extend it, and if they do, having authority to impose reasonable fees and conditions. Lastly, there's a condition that if the village reasonably determines that it needs the assistance of professional consultants to review the site or design plans or inspect the construction, the applicant and the owner will promptly reimburse the village for the reasonable cost of those consultants, and the village can require them to make a deposit with the village in advance, which would be drawn on for those expenses with any remaining balance at the end refunded to the applicant. And these basically would be the conditions included in the resolution for July 10th, I'm sorry, for July 10th, as well as any other conditions that may be recommended by the board or Mr. B or me as we review this further, or the village staff, and anyone else. We'll welcome any suggestions from anyone as to conditions, and they would be put into the July 10th resolution. So this is a resolution that authorizes and directs both the village attorney and myself to draft that decision for the July 10th meeting. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to emphasize that while the earlier vote enacted legislation and changed the zone, the vote on this directive is simply a directive to council to prepare a draft decision. It is not an enactment of those conditions.
Great, thank you. I'd like the motion authorizing council to prepare the paperwork and resolutions. Mr. Magoo makes that resolution, that motion. Can I get a second? Trustee Foley makes that motion. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? The vote is 7-1. Thank you. Okay, this portion of the meeting, we just turn to comments in general. Sorry. The consent calendar. Sorry. Yep. We will move to approve the consent calendar, which is the items we've spoken about before. Again, does anyone need any further education on the matters? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar? Trustee Heyer makes that motion. Trustee Falco seconds that motion. All in favor? Unanimously approved the consent calendar. Good, please. We could now move to general citizens' comments on other matters. Yes? Hello, please, if you could like to hear me. Thank you.
On the Mrs. Swazi was talking about this new system that's going to detect leaks in the line. How accurate is that? How far can it detect? I'm going to tell you from personal experience. I had a problem with my water line coming from the street into the house. For about 6 months, it sounded like water was running in the house. I had plumbers in, I had people from the village come in and whatever. And they said that we ascertained that it wasn't in the house, it was outside someplace, in the lawn. And finally somebody came, dug up my lawn, replaced the whole pipe from the house through the street. And it was shown that the pipe looked like a pillow. It just had all little holes all through the pipe, all through the copper pipe, which was leaking the water out into the lawn. And I wasn't being charged for it because it never went through my meter. Are such problems like this? If it happened to mine, I'm sure it's happened to others.
Well, sir, if I could just comment on that, they're coming Saturday to replace my pipe from the street to my
Same
house
thing?
for the exact same reason.
Right. So what happens is the electrolysis that builds up in the ground of electrical pulse forms those little holes. And I'm just wondering whether the system will detect them.
So, Ms. Soros, the resolution tonight was to allow H2M to put together a request for proposal. So the vendors who will likely respond will probably, in that response, also have a method of detecting it. I don't know if there's more than one way to do it. But I'm sure they'll start with the major infrastructure, our infrastructure, looking for valves and such. Just last week, Mr. DeFrancisco and I had to go to New Hyde Park Road. There was actually a manhole filled to the top of the water. There was a valve, it wasn't ours, it happened to be the Western Water District, but there was a puddle on the road. So those type of things that would show a use of water that's not being built. So they would look for probably the big pipes and big valves, big connections, but then I don't think it's going to go into individual water
So between lines,
services.
valves, and whatever, they wouldn't find it.
No, and I don't know what methods they'll use at this point.
If they put it in a well, how far afield from the well can you detect anything?
I don't
You don't know.
I don't know the cost of it. I don't know what it means.
Because mine, as I say, mine was running for at least 6 months before finally somebody came in and knew what the hell they were doing. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's a process.
Good luck to you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am?
No, it's actually.
I was told that,
Sorry. Go ahead.
were you telling me to come up now?
No.
It's okay, fine, go ahead.
I was appalled that calls were not recorded and petitions were not acknowledged. I don't understand that. And also, Mr. Stimler said that Valley Stream residents still have an IDA in place. They don't. They sued the IDA, they sued the board, and it was withdrawn and settled out of court. So there's nothing there. I mean, the Valley Stream Wall is paying the taxes.
I just want to clarify too, you had said that there was a petition not acknowledged. It was never received.
There was, it was all over the paper. I'll send you the clipping, okay?
How about the petition? How about we just get the petition called in? No, I know, but you know,
What are you
let's just
talking- I'm
correct
talking
the
about
verbiage.
Valley Stream
But
and
no,
Mr. Stimler.
I'm talking about Valley Stream. You had said that you were upset that calls were recorded.
Yes.
And that a petition was not acknowledged.
That's
I'm
right.
just saying to use the proper vocabulary. It was never received.
Well, so you
Just-
say.
So,
Okay, but there is a gentleman's agreement that's been in place here since the late 1800s. And you people of the board took an oath of office to protect us. You're not doing that so far.
I rescind comments. We're actually celebrating the anniversary of that next
Oh,
year.
nice. Yes, I know you are. And I hope that we have something to celebrate. That you are keeping with the gentleman's agreement and thinking of us. Not one developer, you're changing so many zoning changes for developers who have nothing to do with us and everything to do with us.
Okay, thank you.
So please, please do your fiduciary duty.
the woman in the back was waiting and thinking.
Robinson, 65 Garden Street. Mayor, I just wanted to comment on a very special event that the Mineola Garden City Rotary Club held last week, honoring our absolutely fantastic, proud Garden City volunteers from the Garden City Fire Department. It is our hope that it's an enjoyable and meaningful event for the fire department, volunteers, as it was for we Rotarians. And I just want to thank so much you, Mayor, for attending, and for down the line, Village Administrator Ralph Swazi, and John Delaney, who is the Fire Commissioner this year. Teresa Trouvet, thank you so much for coming, and Bob Goldrick, thank you very much. You're the immediate past Fire Marshal, I do believe, and Mark Heyer, thank you so much. You are a firefighter yourself, and I believe you're ex-captain. Well, and of course, trustee Foley. And your husband was an ex-chief. And I have to say that there were 14 current and ex-chiefs attending the event, which I thought was absolutely monumental.
It was great.
Yes, so thank you so much. We are so happy to have bestowed this honor upon the department. They protect us, they protect our homes and our businesses, and we thank them so much. It was a wonderful event. Thanks so much for the support of this.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, did you get the memo? Dated 6/5/18? I gave a copy to you.
Yes, I did see that.
And the commissioner got a copy too, I believe. Okay. Just to refresh your memory, the location. Well, you know, I'm a perambulator. That's the right word, somebody who walks
That's
around.
way beyond me, so you better explain that.
I think a person who walks around a lot. Okay. But around a bit.
Thank you.
Okay, location, railroad tracks at Franklin Ave, just south of 7th Street. Where all the sand, dirt, gravel, rocks, broken glass, litter, leaves, and grass clippings, etc. Okay. Now, I'll ask a series of questions. If you want to answer, you can. If not, just go to the next question. Okay. Never noticed by anyone?
We are,
Okay,
that is on our radar, believe me.
Yeah, okay. Not enough equipment to deal with the situation when a broom will suffice? Not enough village workers? Village workers too lazy to work? Workers lack supervision? Who would be the supervisor of that? I think Mr. Oker, right? Yeah, Mr. Oker. Right here, Mr. Oker. Supervision incompetent? Supervision non-existent? Why are Park Street Department not listed in Village Hall, the department directory downstairs? I love an answer to that question. The parks in the street department, they're not listed in the directory, so nobody knows who the supervisor is. The directory downstairs, it says mayor, Brian C. Downey, commissioner, all the departments are listed. Even the IT guy, Mark Nathan's there, one person, his department's listed. Yet the street department and the parks department, there's no listing in the directory. How come? An omission? Okay, well, something for you to address later.
Check on it.
Okay, here's one. Why can a similar mess be found throughout Village Central? Everywhere you go, it's a mess. Like those little dips in the sidewalk where the sidewalk is the street. It's dirt there that has never been addressed. Okay, it's just disgusting. I mean, I really have a lot of clean patches, but if you do a lot of walking, you'll always come across these patches of dirt and sand and gravel, and it's just disgusting. I mean, I would think that you would be interested. Well, I don't think I saw Mr. Swazi once on 7th Street. So I said, well, actually, no, Miss 7th Street is, because I actually saw him. But I've never seen him around town. I never see anybody. Don't you love this place? It's great. It's great. Something to consider. Oh, and also, for the record, no joke, I am campaigning for President of the United States of America in 2020. And,
you need a hat.
That's a hat.
You need a hat with a saying.
Just something to consider. I'm not going to dwell on this because I don't want to say anything, but you all took an oath to defend the Constitution, okay? Part of the Constitution is free speech. It's the First Amendment. And you're going to tell me I can't discuss demographics? And when I do, I have to be apologetic? No. As President of the United States, I discuss demographics.
When you're president, you'll make that rule. Thank you.
I make that rule right now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on general matters? Yes, sir.
Dr. James Alonji, 40 Hilton Avenue, Garden City, since 1983. Well, 86, over there, 83 and 4. But anyway, I just have a question concerning 550 Stewart. And it's a very basic question. Will this developer be paying the same type of taxes as I'm paying? Or is he going to be getting a break? You know, I'm hearing a lot of different chatter about it, and I'm not that familiar. I just started hearing about it, and I said, well, hey, look, you know what?
Doctor, you need 555, and he'll be paying full village taxes.
Paying full village taxes.
550.
Our understanding, it's not up to us, he is applying to the Nassau County or Town of Hempstead IDA, which grants tax relief, or may or may not.
What was that? There was some term that I heard, you know, that he would be paying the tax. What was it?
Pilot
in lieu of taxes.
Right, so what are they, extended, like, when my 35,000 comes up each year, I pay it?
There's all different variations of what the IDA might or might not do.
And also to clarify,
But he will be
the
paid-
IDA is just for the school portion of the taxes.
Well, that's
So you will be paying full village taxes. So then,
Yes.
So Nassau County, Nassau County gives you.
and it's an if he applies. Obviously, there, different people in town and the school board can object to the pilot.
And the village
Which
board.
is, yes, and that's yet to be seen. So everyone who's gotten up and is acting like he's already got the pilot, he doesn't have.
But we don't want to have.
Okay.
So it's, it's.
But if he does, he'll be more, he'll not have to pay the school tax
They
in 1
stage it
year.
over, they stage it over time. It's undetermined how long it would be.
20 years.
10 years, and then they say step it up over time.
Okay.
They'll pay something, and then they'll say,
Right now,
start with 10%.
you're starting with what they pay now. They pay now.
Okay, so if my school taxes were 21,000, that was my school tax.
He's paying more than that.
Okay, 150 units, he should. But, so that 21,000 or that I'm paying, he would be paying an equal amount, except if he gets that pilot program.
That's right.
And
So
the
in
pilot
other words,
program,
does it-
well, in the end, will he be paying the same amount?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's just a prorated.
It's a phase.
So
It's a phase-in, which could be over 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay, so if it ends up to be $300,000, they might say, well, this year you paid 25,000, next year you pay 50,000.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's a step up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn? Is that Steve Benito, seconds that motion? All those in favor?